Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have another excellent game to share with you from the Clash of Generations that concluded today, July 29th. This is the sixth and final classical game between Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus and Peter Svidler. Erdogmus won the match 4-2, and that consisted of 3 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws. Through those 6 games, his rating improved by 16. His current live rating sits at 2642, and that is enough to place him firmly in the live ratings in the top 100 in the world. He's currently sitting at 87th. Okay, anything else to note about this 14-year-old? Yes, his performance rating through these 6 games reached a remarkable 28-23. Okay. We continue in this position with bishop c5. The opening we're looking at, Ruy Lopez. Bishop c5 is the neo-archangel. If the e-pawn is picked up, d4, most popular, rook e1, another path. All right, bishop c5 it is. c3. Black continues with b5. If the e-pawn is picked up in this position, you do not have a pick between these two. Rook e1 fails. Here's how black can lose control of the position if you pick up the e-pawn. The d-pawn would basically run wild with tempo. You scare the knight away. Goes to f6, for instance. There's d6. This is one sample line. Black is up 2 pawns, not the healthiest, but the computer here prefers white. Calls it about +1. All right, black not interested in swiping the e-pawn. We have b5, e4 now secure. And black has a pick here. How do you want to play it with the d-pawn, 1 or 2? Decides on 1. d4, bishop a7. No pin to worry about. No knight jump either. And bishop going to feel stable on e3. Only after white has invested this tempo does the bishop say, fine, I'll hop to the main diagonal now. Bishop e3. Capture on d4. And this opens up a square now on b4. Knight hops to it. Black will soon track the light square bishop. Pressure on e4. How are we handling this as white? Knight b in d2 is played here. Now, why doesn't the knight go to its favorite square? Frequently describes c3 as the knight's favorite. It's because from c3 it is not as stable as d2. So this knight can be scared away at some point. Not right here because of the check on a4. Pawn falls. But after black castles in this position, now this is serious. b4, e4 going to collapse. And if you take time out to preserve the knight, what are you doing after this third attacker enters the mix? Computer cites knight d2, not really the way to play it under developing like this. So at the end of the day, the queen knight goes to this less active but more stable d2 square. And now the bishop is ready to duck the knight for bishop exchange. So castles, there you go. Bishop b1. Bishop is swiped while it still can be swiped. Bishop pair. For Team Black, only now do we see castles. And the follow-up, bishop g5. How to handle the pin? We have h6 straight away. This is considered best. If you don't address this pin straight away, you're in big trouble. So, for instance, something I tested out here, let's just say black challenges the duo. Big trouble. Black is lost. e5 is now there. And with a line like this, you're still losing, not because of knight captures g5 in this position. Best would be to take the knight. I'd like to show you why this sacrifice on g5 would not be working. It's because there's a capture on e5. And now that black doesn't have a d-pawn around, there's queen d5 to get out of the pin. And you do that with tempo. Making 1 threat on g2. So the winning way with such a line at this moment here would be to take the knight, and we would have a very cool follow-up. Knight g5. That's sharp. Threatening mate in 1. If pawn takes knight, now g5. Okay, occupied but no longer under black's control. Queen f5 is winning. These two are enough to do the trick. Mate shortly on g7. Computer says best is to give up the queen to stop the mate. My point, something must be done about this pin straight away. And we see just that. h6, bishop takes knight, queen takes bishop, and white swipes a pawn with tempo. Rook b8, and the queen says, okay, mission accomplished. Retreat. Queen c3, queen d3. Up a pawn, healthy center, good coordination. Evaluation about plus 0.5. From here, queen g6. There's a pin, and the f-pawn is also free to maybe disturb white's center. Follow-up is d5. Light square bishop's mobility has decreased. Dark square bishop increased. There's now a second pin in the position. Follow-up is rook f to e8. Computer prefers the doubling on the c file. What would happen if black tries the f5 break? Well, it's not good because white has knight h4 here. The fork. And note, black does not have a way out of this with the capture on e4 targeting the queen because the knight is a hungry piece, takes the queen, and then is on the rook, or maybe even you go for a fork, winning the other rook. It's not there. f5, no good here. Rook to e8 it is, rook f to e8. And now I really like this next move. We don't see what would seem to be the most natural move, rook a to c1, contesting an open file. Instead, we have a4. So one thing white is maybe looking at in such a position is the knight. It's not the greatest piece. However, after a4, after influencing b5, it does have a wonderful square, c4. So a4 is carving out a square for this second rank knight. What would happen if rook a to c1 was played? Well, this is where we could now see f5 be effective. If f5 is played here, knight h4 would no longer be a good idea. So let's revisit knight h4 with these moves included. The difference, black could now take on e4. Knight takes queen is no longer packing a punch. What white could play in response to f5 is the capture on f5. However, after queen f7, black will be collecting the pawn back shortly. Diagonals will be opening up, which is good news for the side with the bishop pair. So in this one, we don't see the standard looking rook on an open file. It's a4. Black does not want to see the a file open up, so plays b4. And now the follow-up is rook a to b1, another interesting move. You could play the rook to the open file, but do know that f2 could maybe, in some cases, be a bit sensitive. This rook is not always going to be around. If you put this queen rook on c1, it's not always going to be around defending f2. I'm not saying in this exact position this would happen, but this is a move. Maybe at some point it could be disturbing, taking advantage of the pin, threatening f2. In this one, we have rook a to b1. What's going on exactly with this? Well, the simple point, you're defending an unprotected pawn. Looking a bit deeper, what white really wants is a knight transfer to f5. Wants to play knight h4 and have queen f6 not pack a second punch. Knight h4, queen f6 targets the knight, but it will no longer target b2. All right, from here we have a rook lift, rook c5 it is, follow up knight h4 into f5, this strong post immediately challenged, knight c4, bishop captures knight, white is okay allowing the doubling of the f-pawns. Look at the minor pieces at the end of the day. Very strong knight on c4, just a moment away from being glued in to that square if needed with b3. Difficult times ahead here for black. He continues with rook c7. Now the computer, not a fan of this move. What it's leaning towards is h5. What's going on with h5? Well, establishing a pawn on h4 can be cramping to white's kingside. If a black pawn is established on h4, many moves from now, we can see cases where the queen runs wild and has an opportunity for maybe a perpetual check. Let's say the back rank is abandoned. There's a pawn on h4, a perpetual check with the queen on f4 and c1, that sort of thing. Has a cramping effect. Black pawn on h4. All right, in this one, we have a rook reposition, rook c7, maybe ready to double. Bishop's eyes have also opened up. Follow up, knight a5, taking advantage of a weakness behind black's last move. a5 no longer covered. The knight eyes this excellent c6 square. At the same time, e5 no longer under control, so black hops to it. Knight c6, and from here we have rook captures f5. Now there's no time to take on f5 with the queen because of knight captures rook, which is defending the queen. So it is rook captures pawn. And let me throw this one to you as a pop quiz. What move do you think white played here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, it says you could take the a pawn, but I like the decision here by white. He goes with rook b to e1. This point here is defended twice, hit 3 times, but it is defended tactically. In the game, we have g6. If bishop captures f2, you take the bishop, and if rook captures rook, you don't have your flight square anymore. You get mated. So the f2 pawn is poison. Black creates a more stable flight square. And now from here, rook e2. This little transfer, just a 2-mover. Everything is cool now. Base points, nice and secure. Active defense with the rook on e2. And only after establishing this excellent post for the rook is white now ready to go ahead and swipe the a pawn. You can't do anything about it. You play a5, it falls. So it's a goner. From here, bishop c5, queen takes a, king g7, queen back to d3. I found this funny. This is the second time the queen has played like this. Earlier, it was the queen going from c2, swiping the c pawn and flying back, hiding on d3, and now it is the a pawn. Very nice post for the queen and a clear path forward for white. You got to pass her, you're going to push it. Black has to come up with something fast. Slow, steady progress for white. At this point, king h7 is played. Once more, the computer is drawn to this clamp down on the king side. All right, we don't see h5. Another move the computer has its eye on is rook c8. The rook, by the way, currently dominated by the knight. So he wants to go for a rook improvement to this open file now. I did a double take on this one. Isn't this a free rook? It's not. It's a poison rook. It says best is rook c2, calls it about +1. If you take the rook, black is winning. By smashing through an f2, setting up a discovered check, the queen and the bishop will be enough to win. Queen, dark square bishop, white, not strong on the dark squares. How would this look from here if g3, there's a mate in 2. If queen g3, there's a tactic that's winning the queen. And if the king goes back, there's this idea right here setting up a mate. At this stage, it's saying give up the queen or create a little room for the king to try and slip away. At the end of this line, it says bishop captures h4, only winning move for black. This is as far as I'm taking it. These pawns can be a contributor to help with some winning continuation from here. Bishop covers the diagonal if necessary. Anyhow, how it plays out in this one going all the way back, what we have after queen d3 is king h7, no h5, no rook c8, t8 idea. Follow up a5, queen g5, targeting the pawn. It's defended, simple enough. Rook c8, g3. So forget about, at this stage, this idea of h5, h4. The ideal construction is now in place for white. That being h4, king on g2, out of a pin. You stay strong on the dark squares to tame this piece. Do know, before playing g3, you better have the queen there watching over that point. The f2 pawn, not a defender. From here it is rook to e8. You're out of the pin. Rook e4. Queen takes rook. Queen takes rook. White would not be able to defend f2 in that position. So poison rook on e4. Follow up a6, b3, and from here rook to e2. Rook a4 is played next. Black has been successful transferring the rook to its ideal post to try and reel in the pawn, so positioned behind the passed pawn, in other words. If black exchanges on e2 and then takes on d5, you have to give up the bishop for the pawn now, losing material. This knight is so good. Can't get the queen around to defend. So what black plays, rook a4, a7, bishop captures pawn, queen captures b, and now what? In the game, we have rook 5 to f4. If this rook moves, it's going to have to move somewhere along the a file. It doesn't have many options to still stay as a defender of the bishop. If rook a6 was played, there's queen c4, taking away all of the light squares on the a file. Knight has a dark one, pawn, rook. Rook is out of squares. White will win material soon. So the try is rook 5 to f4, taking advantage of this pin, which is broken right away. This is now a threat. From here, queen h5 is played. If something else was played, let's say this rook moves to c4, queen f3 is a winning way. Defend the pawn, target a pawn, rook e7 right around the corner. So for instance, king g7, rook e7 is winning, targeting f7 again, as well as the bishop. All right, winning continuation there for white. What is tried? Queen h5. And with a little bit of calculation here, yes, you could go ahead and simply take on f4. Black continues with rook captures f4. If we have a look at this Pac-Man continuation, just taking pieces, queen takes rook, queen takes rook, queen takes rook, queen takes bishop is there, defending f2. You're up the piece, you're winning. I had a look at a different move at this moment here. If black goes with bishop captures f2, there's only one winning move for white. Queen d1, offering a queen exchange, defending the rook. If queen takes b2, queen f3 is winning. King h1, by the way, would be losing. There'd be bishop g3 setting up queen h2 mate. Queen f3 is cool in this position. You're up a healthy rook, and you have everything on light squares for the most part. There isn't any wonderful discovered check in the air for black at this stage. Bishop move, king h1, queen g2, both cool. All right, how black plays it at this stage here after the capture on f4, rook recapture, and after queen g3, black resigns. You do have to be accurate here, white's last move. If you move the rook, if you address this threat, let's say rook e7, there's rook f3. The fork there. It says after rook e7, rook f3, best is to give up the queen. Not ideal, not winning. With the final move, queen g3, how are things different if black tries rook f3? In this position, if the game continued with rook f3, there's now queen g4. And all the important squares near the king are nice and secure. And you're still on this bishop in this position, up a rook currently. Any final note? If the game continued at this point with queen captures rook, yet again, this Pac-Man continuation, white is winning. You could collect the bishop straight away, or maybe first collect a pawn and then take with the queen or knight. Once more, you're there, defending f2. All right, how it plays out in this one, queen g3, final move here. What a game. I really like this one. Slow, steady progress here by white. A nice positional victory. Anyhow, your thoughts with this one, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.